Doing whatever it takes for our students, this is Education Forum, the podcast. I'm Allison Sillis, and we're here today to talk about the underfunding that has been happening in our schools and really pull back the curtain on what's going on in our education system. I'm here today with Phil Battinson and Stephanie Baroche, and we're going to get right into it. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks for having us.
So first, I'd like to talk a little bit about how did you get into the role that you're in? Stephanie, do you want to go first?
Are we introducing ourselves first? Sorry.
Yeah. You can say who you are, where you're from, all of that. Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Stephanie Baroche, and I'm a school social worker with the Trillium Lakelands District School Board. So I'm a member of the Professional Student Services Personnel, or PSSP, and I'm also the president of our local bargaining unit.
That's great. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm Chief Custodian at the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board. I'm currently the sitting president for the Plant Support Staff Unit, comprised of custodial workers, maintenance workers, kitchen, cafeteria workers, as well as the infant toddler preschool program staff out of one of our high schools.
Yeah. So you both have a big range of members that you're supporting.
Big time,
Yeah. How did you both get into education and then into the roles that you're in?
Well, I actually started the same week that I was doing my high school exams. So I got hired by the school board, and that summer I was working to help prepare a school for students in September, as well as taking care and cleaning a daycare at the end of the evening. So really cool community involvement, and good to see what was going on in that neighboring school.
Yeah, and then you eventually got into the union?
Yep. So that was around 2020. I joined as treasurer, and then 2 years after that, I got elected president, and then been doing that for 4.5 years now.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah.
How about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, so, oh my goodness, I've been a school social worker for about 17 years now, and I was just really fortunate when I graduated from my Master's of Social Work program in 2009. I was really fortunate to get hired right out of university because at that time there was a really big focus on student mental health in schools.
Can you tell me a little bit about your first day on the job and what was it like for you working in the education system? And how did it make you feel?
Yeah, so I remember my first day walking into a school as a social worker. I was so excited to work with the students, to get to know my colleagues, and I really, as a social worker coming in, I really believed and still do in the power of education to level the playing field, to nurture the whole child, and give kids a really good start in life. So a lot of excitement for sure.
That's great. Phil, how about you? It felt like an easier transition for you. It felt like coming from right at high school, like you said.
For sure, yeah. We went through a training on how, getting to know the chemicals, but also getting to know how, the rhythm is of cleaning classrooms. But when I was finally assigned to a school, which was walking distance from my parents' house, I met a teacher that worked there that was popping in the summer because he was changing classrooms. And he was trying to organize all of his stuff. And I got to ask him a lot about what's the school year like? What's this community like? What's, got to know more about the daycare as well and get to know more about actually what goes into preparing a school for September. Blew my mind in terms of how much gets done in one room alone, right? So very interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely. So a big part of your work is often actually behind the scenes. And so parents and guardians aren't necessarily seeing your day to day. Can you tell me a little bit about what it's like for you in your jobs?
For sure. In terms of as a chief custodian, I'll start there. Your mornings are very busy, and I'll let you know when there's snow and ice. You need to take care of obligations outside your schools, but you also need to, do inspections of your mechanical systems, hoping everything's okay there, making sure your building has heat in the winter and all the adequate spaces, but as well as water flushing. So you're flushing all the water fountains as well as all the drinkable taps for at least 10 seconds to make sure if there is any lead that it's all flushed out. So those are under regulations, but it just adds a lot to your initial part of your day where you're kind of needed in 3 or 4 places all at once. And of course, as people start to enter the building or start walking down the walkways, you want those cleared.
Yep.
And you want that done before there's cars in the parking lot so that you can actually, with your snowblower, shoot the snow in certain directions. Yep. So it is really tricky depending on the day. And, fingers crossed there's no emergencies. But, you kind of got to prioritize your own day. But you also need to be pretty quick at it, right? So our members, right at that initial stage of the day, they're already kind of feeling burnt out. And then they're kind of catching their breath as they go, right?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
is it typically one person per school site that's doing that work?
The majority of them, yeah. Except the high schools will get another day staff member. And if there are any absences, it's really hard to find coverage. So there are times where even at the large high schools, there is only one person there. So.
Yeah, and like you said, they're large, they're big. It's a lot of work to get around and being pulled in so many different directions.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I'll put it this way. Some of the schools I worked at, with a decent snowfall, it's 4.5 hours outside. Yeah. So that's your outside obligations, let alone everything else inside the school, right?
To make the school functioning when the kiddos get there, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, I can really resonate with a lot of what you said there. As a school social worker, our days are varied. We can be running small groups, working with individual students, providing counseling, talking to parents and consulting on the phone, collaborating with teachers, providing PD for other members in the board, responding to crisis. So there's just a lot that can happen in a day, and we're often pulled in a lot of different directions, and depending on what's happening on the day, we really have to figure out how we're going to prioritize student needs.
Yeah. And for you, I know every board is different, but is it often that your staff are assigned to one school, or can they be pulled in to different job sites as well?
Yeah, so being part of the PSSP bargaining unit, we have several different job classes. So we've got folks who do assessments like speech and language pathologists and psychometrists, our psychology staff, who will travel around to different schools throughout the board, right? Our PSSP staff work throughout the board. But yeah, certainly, sorry.
So good. Are they at different job sites or?
As a social worker, certainly I work mostly in elementary schools. And so I have 4 different schools that I cover. And I know some of my colleagues are stretched between 5 to 6 schools. Generally speaking, we have one social worker that's assigned to a high school, but even that high school social worker will carry an elementary school or 2. So we're stretched pretty thin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's all part of the underfunding that we're seeing right now.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So since you've both been in your roles and working in education for quite some time now, how have you seen the education system change since you've started?
Yeah, so I mean, I can definitely say that with the chronic understaffing and underfunding, we're just seeing that it's more and more difficult to meet kids' needs. The needs are more complex, they're more intense, and just the sheer number can feel pretty overwhelming at times. And I know certainly from talking to my teacher and educational assistant colleagues, they're in survival mode most of the time. They're just trying to keep their head above water and keep everybody safe. So yeah, things have changed significantly, and our education system is just not equipped to give students what they need to be successful.
For sure. It continues to change. I look at our roles as custodians, and over even this past recent years, we're now conducting weekly generator inspections for our generators that are on our sites. So Ottawa Carleton will have 151 work sites, but around over 50 have generators. So this has been added workload to our staff. School boards are in difficult situations, as we know, right, with funding. So they have to find ways to potentially shift our workload. And our staff they care, right? They care about their schools, and they care about making sure their buildings are running smoothly. Mm-hmm. But those checks alone, weekly checks, are pretty extensive. You're checking fuel levels, oil levels, corrosion at the terminals, whether if they're stored in a room, there's adequate heat. If they're stored outside, whether there's egress, there's no snow impeding your ability to walk around the generator. So there's a lot there. But in talking about that, it's changed a lot as well, because we do have a lot of logs we have to fill. Almost like a liability type of thing, right? So that our staff washrooms are clean and supplies are replenished, we have to fill a log for that. That's been a new regulation that's also come down. So I'm now seeing the amount of not just workload, but also the paperwork to follow. And that's where I think our members are feeling that when they have to prioritize, but they're also kind of time-stamped, if you will, in a sense, having to fill out these legal documents, they, at the end of the day, they don't feel like they can do everything, or do everything perfectly. So it is difficult to prioritize. And I think that's probably the best way to frame how workload's continuously shifting. Yeah.
And what happens when the demand becomes so high, but the supports aren't available? That would obviously fall on you and your members. Can you talk a little bit about what that's like for them?
Yeah, I think when demand for supports is truly outstripping the staffing and the resources that are available, what we're seeing is that kids' needs just aren't being met the way that we need to. And unfortunately, what happens when kids' needs aren't met is that sometimes they express their anger and frustration in the only ways that they know how or have available to them. And that can create a really unsafe situation for students and staff. And we know that rates of violence in schools and classrooms has been increasing. And with the understaffing and the underfunding, we're seeing teachers and education workers who are just stressed, burned out, and when they're stressed and burned out like that, they're even less able to meet the needs. So it kind of creates this vicious cycle that really reduces a sense of safety and belonging for everybody.
Yeah. How about for you, Phil? What's like for your members?
I think there's a lot of stories that would come out of when you have a higher workload. This could increase potentially injuries on site, slips and falls outside. But one thing that, in tapping into the work our maintenance staff do as well that we don't often think about is the work we do in our schools is to help keep our schools clean, safe, effective, welcoming, and also comfortable. We don't talk often about comfortable, but let's talk HVAC, talk temperature in our classrooms, over like too hot, too cold. This will directly have an impact on students and their ability to learn.
Yeah.
So if you're not able to do preventative maintenance, as we call it, on your HVAC systems, the same you would for your vehicle every year, you'll do your servicing. You're going to run into situations where you're potentially going to have failures on your fan units, or you won't be drawing in fresh air from outside if your dampers aren't opening properly. So, and we do see shifts in our temperature. So our fan units go through quite a beating in the winter, if you will. So us always having to react to emergencies and problems is actually just snowballing, and it won't allow us to have a safe and comfortable and welcoming environment for our students every day. And that goes to community members, parents, and other staff members that we work alongside. So I could talk for a while about it, but it's definitely apparent now more than ever.
Yeah. Can you think of any times when you've had to prioritize maybe one situation or something going on over the needs of either someone else being a student or another incident that's going on in the school?
Yeah, I think one thing that comes to mind for me, just in terms of, again, that level and complexity of needs, I was recently speaking with one of my colleagues who is a speech and language pathologist, and she mentioned that the number of assessments that she's doing in a year has doubled from, past years. And she's really having to prioritize quantity over quality. And so students just aren't getting the same access to, again, those assessments, those good quality assessments that they need to support their learning. And so we also know that as PSSP staff are working at this pace, that's unsustainable. And also, we do know, too, that families who have the means, some of them can access services through the private sector. But obviously, there's big costs with accessing private services. And it also really raises a question around equity for families that either don't have the means or they live in more rural parts of Ontario, like where my board is, that we just don't have the access to the same services that larger centers do. And so, that really has a big impact on our staff as well. There's sort of this sense of moral distress that we know there are kids out there who require the assessment, intervention, mental health services, behavioral supports, and we're just not able to get to them. So needs go unidentified, unmet for years, and sometimes we'll see kids graduating through high school and or not, right? Because their needs just haven't been met.
Yeah. Phil, how about for you? Has there been any situations that you can think of, either for yourself or your members, where they've had to really prioritize, one thing over the other, and what that's been like for them?
For sure. I can think of from experience, you're dealing with over like a issue with a toilet, let's say, for example, and there's water everywhere, and that's going to increase the ability, like potential slips and falls, and you're taking care of that. Meanwhile, there was a sign for our school that had fallen off the awning at the front door due to high winds that had just started, and it's this massive sign. So you get a call from the office, and you don't expect emergencies to arise one after another, but they do. And other examples would be you're servicing your air filters, and these are massive industrial units. So for your own safety, you lock out and tag certain breakers, let's say, and if you're going to change filters, you want to make sure nobody accidentally fires on that fan unit. So when you do these projects, you really got to set aside time. But if you're the only custodian on site, how are you going to deal with any of these floods or faulty plumbing? Or any other issues that come up, right? Like a sign coming off the awning. So there's definitely been numerous stories where, you need to be in all kinds of directions. But I don't know, I guess at the end of the day, you got to try to see if you can tap other staff on board to help you maybe supervise areas. But it's not straightforward in how you manage all that, right? You need to kind of temporarily put things to the side and try to deal with other stuff. But make sure you get back to them after if things do calm down, hoping they do, right?
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. But being pulled in all of these different directions and really wanting to be doing the most that we all can in education at all times, right? That, like you said, that really takes a toll on you. And I think that follows you home as well. What has that been like for yourself and for your members? Like, do you find that this underfunding is affecting just like your personal lives, your outside work lives as well too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in public education, all of us are in helping professions, whether you're a teacher, an education worker, a custodian, a secretary, a bus driver, a social worker, another PSSP member. We're all in the business of caring, like Phil was talking about. We care a lot about our work and take a lot of pride in the work that we do and care about our students a lot. And so it can be very disheartening. It can be easy on those more difficult days to kind of slip into a sense of helplessness or hopelessness because sometimes the problems just seem so overwhelming. We feel that on a personal level, not just a professional level, when we know that we're not able to meet the students' needs in the ways that we would want to. Yeah.
For sure. Really well said. I think every single job class in education at the end of the day is impacting students in a positive way. And our members do take pride in the work they do, and they treat the school like it's their house and everybody in it like their family because we're all part of a community, right? So on the days where you are really all over the map, well, one thing for sure is you lose track of time, which can be, if you do have things you need to do at set times, like, open up exterior doors for recess or whatever else, you might just, fall behind on that. But once the end of the day hits, you'll notice pretty quick that you're both physically and mentally very exhausted. And it might put you in a tricky situation with your family if you're just not able to take care of your family at home or cook or deal with what you have to right after your shift because you're just so burned out, right? And then that can carry into your sleep and that can cause disruptions there too. So it can snowball, and it's kind of why we do see burnout. It's kind of why we do see sick leave usage today. People don't feel like they can get it all done, and then it affects their home life. It affects their ability to recover, and it snowballs from there. Yeah.
I find it can really affect the way that as professionals we collaborate with each other at school too, because, as a social worker, as a mental health counselor, part of my role is promoting mental health and talking about mental health. And it is really difficult for me to, for example, walk into a staff meeting to talk about mental well-being or to talk with an educational assistant about more strategies to support a student in a classroom when I know that they are doing their very best just to survive and get through the day. And that that they're struggling themselves too with their own well-being,
Yep.
just because, again, of the conditions that we're seeing in
Yeah,
schools, the
absolutely.
overwhelm.
Yeah, it's one of those things and we know there's a solution. Just
Yeah.
properly fund the
Yes.
public education system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And we can, it might not all happen at once, but we can fill these gaps in the ways that are going to positively affect our students, our working conditions, all of it. Right.
Yeah.
And and the government has the ability to do this and to make it better.
Yeah.
And we know when we surveyed our members that this was a concern for them, is that
Yeah.
they're realizing how burnt out they are and how much it's actually affecting them, just with the demands that are just increasing because of students are aging buildings, all of these things, right? So it needs to be addressed. This underfunding absolutely needs to be addressed in public education.
For sure. Definitely well said with the workload our members have expressed. And we're seeing cuts across the province in different school boards, and none of us can find where this workload can shift, even with one position. So it's definitely something we can fix. It's definitely something we should advocate for.
Yep.
And, prioritize education as an investment for all of our future, right? So
Absolutely. And so we know that this burnout and these cuts are affecting our students, and they should be showing up in various ways. Can you talk a little bit about that, what you're seeing in your school sites?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, we're definitely seeing the needs, the complexity of the needs, the intensity of the needs increasing. We're seeing students coming to school with more mental health and behavioral concerns. Attendance issues are a huge concern. And we know that these sorts of issues really impact the way that students are able to or not engage with their learning. And we know there's all kinds of factors for why we're seeing this change in student need. The COVID-19 pandemic, of course, had a huge impact, but there's so many things going on, from food and housing insecurity, environmental concerns, just everything that's going on in the news right now, global conflict and war, racism, discrimination. Our families, students, and communities are just under a tremendous amount of stress right now. And we know that students bring all of this to school with them, right? And so, of course, we're seeing the behaviors that we're seeing at school.
Well said. Although our group doesn't directly, interact with students often, we do see patterns of violence, and also you can see some of those trends with vandalism as well. And at the end of the day, you can tell the supports aren't there, just based on how all of this is unfolding, right? So definitely one way I would look at it.
Yeah. And if we're talking about the underfunding that has happened, it really has led to a lot of what's going on in education right now. What are some of the ways that you think that what are some of the ways that you think that the education system, when properly funded, what could that look like for our students? And what are some of the ways that if we had, more going into education, that it would impact them in a positive way?
Yeah, I think smaller class sizes, because again, these students that have these more complex needs, whether that's trauma or all of those other factors that I mentioned, the needs are just higher. And so we do need a team of educators, teachers, EAs. It's the whole team, right? It's everybody. And when we're understaffed, we're not able to provide the level of support that kids need. Again, getting back to that burnout and stress issue, right? One of my favorite child and youth mental health experts, Dr. Jean Clinton, says that every child needs an adult whose eyes light up when they walk in the room. And if we had a properly funded system with the staff, the appropriate level of staff and resources, we would be able to provide that gift to every child.
Absolutely.
Well said, yeah. And we definitely see it with, as I mentioned earlier, preventative maintenance. But if we had enough staff who can get ahead of issues, we won't run into situations where there's no heat in the library and we have to relocate a classroom, or we have issues, other mechanical issues that are causing us to have to relocate classrooms, which really cause disruptions at the end of the day. I could go on, pest control issues too. Like it just keeps, what I mean by snowballing is it's really apparent now that more than ever that it's not working, and we need to make these classrooms environments that students thrive in, right?
Yeah,
So
we can't just have Band-Aid solutions, right? It needs to be properly funded infrastructure.
For sure.
Not only the structural building, but also staff inside as well too, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we talk a lot about, or we hear a lot about striving for excellence in education. And I think all of us that work in public education, that is our goal, right? Excellence in supporting student well-being, student learning. But the way that the government has been chronically underfunding the education system, that's not excellence, right? We're barely keeping our heads above water. It's survival mode.
Yeah.
And I think as professionals, that's really challenging because we have so much talent in our public education system. We have highly qualified, skilled, educated, experienced workers who want to do the work, who want to do the job. We need the resources to support us.
Yeah. Because we're underfunded and we're over it.
Yeah.
Aren't we?
Times,
Right?
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's we're talking a lot about the realities of our everyday, but I know all education workers and teachers, everyone in the system, are doing such a good job.
Yeah.
And half the time parents and even the students don't realize what's actually going on behind the scenes and how much you are all making it work with so much less. So thank you both for that. But it's the reality for all of our members right now that's what they're being faced with.
Yeah.
If you could send a message to Doug Ford and the Conservative government right now about, public education and what's needed and what can make it better for our students and our members, what would you say to Doug Ford?
Yeah, I think we've said it already. Fund Ontario public education properly. It is perhaps the biggest and the best investment that we can make in our kids and in our collective future, as Phil was saying. Yeah.
I would tell them we could find a fourth chair and hopefully have them on the podcast for sure. But as we know, for years, we can't even find a single FTE, full-time equivalency job to cut across our school board. So it's apparent now more than ever that we need to invest in education and to just demonstrate how important public education is to everybody. And sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Yeah.
No, and that's the thing. It's not only our members that are saying this, right? It's the public. We're having parents and guardians who are speaking up as well because they're seeing, what is happening, the resources that are being cut for their students. Maybe they're not able to have a full-time EA, for an example, or even have one at all.
Yeah.
And what would you say to Doug Ford to be supporting those parents that are reaching out as well too?
Yeah, I think that, their kids deserve to be at school and to be supported while they're at school. Certainly from the special education world, we see, students that get sent home because the supports aren't there. Or the programming, the appropriate specialized programming isn't there for them. So yeah, we need to fund the system so that every child has access to a world-class education, and that's not happening right now.
Well, I would definitely tell Doug Ford that you can't treat every school board in Ontario blanket statement.
Yep.
And, we do see some boards under ministry supervision no longer have trustees representing diverse communities. You look at Ottawa, and it's so different from one end to the other. So all those parent voices, all those community voices have been silenced. So at the end of the day, I think that would be a very important message for Ford is to not silence those communities. And Ottawa, you're looking at, a school board that's really invested a lot in special education. And I think that should continue to be a priority and not work the opposite. So people have moved to Ottawa for that specific reason. And now they're left with next to no resources for their kids, right? So that would be my strong message for Doug Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, getting back to cuts, I've certainly been hearing already from my colleagues across the province about cuts to PSSP jobs, layoffs. We're losing PSSP jobs through attrition. It's difficult to hire into public education because of the working conditions. So we're losing PSSP staff to the private sector as well, which is really unfortunate because, again, that creates all kinds of cost barriers or makes things completely inaccessible for some families. And unfortunately, because of, again, understaffing, the cuts that are coming, wait lists are long to get those specialized assessments and interventions that kids need. So as the need is growing, the demand is growing, we're hearing about less staff in an already understaffed system. So my heart breaks for families, especially with students who do have those learning needs and they just need those supports to reach their full potential.
Yeah, I was going to touch real quick on privatization, and in respect to what Steph was just saying, privatization, a ballpark number would cost families twice the amount from what they're receiving from the public service, which is working, and we want it to be an investment and continue to work. So to keep that in mind, it's not a solution to our world-class system, but we got to continue to invest in it going forward. Yep. Not at half of inflation, not at half of cost of living. So that's what we're seeing, and we need to turn that ship around.
I really just want to thank both of you for being here with me today and, talking about not only your stories and your experiences, but your members as well too. And so it means a lot that you took the time to be here today and really, get vulnerable and share the experiences, but also talk about how good our education system truly is and the work that your members are doing. And it's just, we're so lucky to have a public education system here in Ontario. And just thank you so much for the work that you've been doing and keep up the good fight.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for listening to Concerns That Matter to our members.
Thank you. I'm Allison Sillis, and this has been Education Forum, the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And if you have any questions or topics that you'd like covered, you can email us at podcast@ossstf.ca. Thanks so much for being here. I can't believe that you were nervous.